It's the True Crime Grapevine with me, Patty Lee, your favorite, I hope, dyslexic detective, armchair detective. Almost PhD. I'm ABD, which means I took all my tests and passed everything. But I didn't write a dissertation in psychology, educational psychology, which has to do with motivations, how people reason, problem solve, think, and argumentation, which you will see I try to put into everything we do here on the True Crime Grapevine. If you're new, hi, I'm Patty Lee. I try to upload at least once a week, sometimes a little bit longer, like now, since I seem to have caught something. I took a couple negative tests, so it's not the vid, but I had something right after Thanksgiving, which I was exposed to that virus. So I'm not exactly sure what I got, but right before Thanksgiving, I got a little under the weather, and I'm just catching up. I mean, I felt bad that next week, taped, then got very ill. So I'm just getting back. You can hear my throat sounds a little icky. So if you're new, hi. What I do here is I retell everything that's happened on all the YouTube. I try to read everything that's written in all even the rags. I go from rags to riches. I go from the Daily Sun, the Daily News, some more, not as reputable sites. I listen to a lot of YouTubers, not the super crazy ones that not too fringy, but and I will tell you about my favorite sources, which I call my main squeezes, and then I also listen to especially local news when there's a crime, and then I tell you what everybody's been talking about since the last time I updated. So that's why it's a grapevine. It's like, when you're in school or at work, around the, water cooler at work, but at school, you go to the cafeteria or someplace, you sit down next to the person who's like, hey, did you hear? Now, I do try to do facts and then sort of work through our way of probabilities, possibilities to probabilities, if you will. Talk about what could be the most logical reasoning. I do tell you about the crazy stuff people are saying, and we break it down. So that's what this channel is about. Nice to see you. This is my 38th episode, which covers November 29th to December today, which is the 11th. And my first case that I'm going to film about, and then I might do the rest of the episode tomorrow. But so as far as we know right now, I'm trying to cover everything about the Idaho 4, or the Moscow, Idaho. That's how you remember how to say it. Moscow, Idaho murders. Because not only is it the most covered and over-covered topic on all the YouTubers and the interweb channels about true crime, but there's some things about it that help inform how we talk about all true crime, I think, personally, about ethically, morally, and what true crime, online true crime is all about. How can people inform but not get in the way of investigations? Because there has, all the YouTubers will say, oh my gosh, and Gabby Petito, the people who were out there filming for their YouTube channel, they broke the case because they alerted where Gabby and Brian's van was last seen, and it did help locate Gabby. And it could have been forever since they found her in the wilderness. True. But they were also people driving. They weren't just YouTubers searching. I mean, their YouTube channel was about taking their family in their van. It was called their channel is Red, White, and Bethune. And they travel around with their family. That was their channel, and they happened to travel there. So can we say, oh my gosh, it wasn't like YouTube true crime solved the case? I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, do I want more subscribers? Sure. Hey, by the way, if you're not subscribed, it's free. Like and subscribe and join me early so that when we blow up, you can say you were the smart one who recognized quality content. All right. But actually, everybody does want to be popular, to be seen, to be listened to have the newest idea, which can lead to people making some leaps, and they don't specify this is one of many possibilities. This is one person of interest to me as a YouTuber versus, oh my God, this person did it and law enforcement doesn't know yet, but I will tell you. That is something I would tell you to watch out for. There is a specific YouTuber who I highly recommend. His name is Mel. He's from Florida. He goes by Mel, like Ick, and then the shortening for education. So ICKEDMEL, at Mel. The Mel comes from his name, Melvin. If you're out there, hi. Hi, Mel. Love ya. Like many people. And the reason many people love him, he has a call-in show. He is admittedly, he's not law enforcement background. He's not a psychologist. He's not a criminal profiler. He is somebody who really loves what he's doing and goes to a large amount of, he goes all the way, like very much research. I'm not talking, that's the dyslexia part. He does a lot of research, takes a lot of time before he says something, and he always is very careful about what academics are actually taught to do, especially in doctoral programs, which you don't say proof. You say, I have this evidence indicates that, would be indicative of. You don't couch things in absolutes, because even when we quote unquote know things absolutely, we can always science, there's a technological advance and we can find out, what we thought we knew based on that old technology or way of thinking isn't really accurate, so we need to change and advance. That's science, people. So even when there's facts, those facts aren't carved in stone, because things change, technology changes, ideas change, and you might be informed with information you didn't hold before. So if you watched week 30, this might be 39, I'm so sorry, I think it's 38. So if you watched my episode 37, the one that was the very middle of November, you would have heard me say the hoodie guy, who initially I was like, and he is still suspicious on that video, because he doesn't buy food. He hangs around the back. The girls don't seem to be hanging with him. And there has been a little bit of update with that, because somebody enhanced the video and it does look like Maddie says F you to the guy, or at least in that general direction. But she was definitely inebriated. She was acting a little goofy, like I have done, like almost every single woman has done when you've had a few drinks and you're getting sassy. And she was waiting for her food, and who knows if she thought he looked at her funny. Did he even, he was looking at them, but I would assume a lot of men were looking at them because they were very good looking girls and acting goofy. But I mean, in the video, he definitely looks sus to me, personally. We'll talk more about his attributes, but last week I'd said, but then there was an online forum that said, that kid had given Maddie maybe his coat. She's wearing a really big, huge black coat. Like, did she borrow that? Even if she didn't like the guy. Who knows if the thing that happened at the corner club was him going, give me my jacket back. And she's like, F you. And there's a scuffle and he got thrown out there. I mean, and I don't know any of that happened, right? This is what is the problem with speculation. I could convince you of, well, if A, then B, then if B, then C. But if I'm making guesses, like I heard he let her borrow his jacket, or I heard that maybe that, and then I make a whole supposition and conclusion based on that one, well, it's probably his jacket, and that's why she's interacting that way with him. Is that a fact? No. It's not even substantiated information. It is. So it's not a probability. So we have facts that are what we think for sure. We have probabilities, which are probably that's accurate. And then we have possibilities. And possibilities are the interwebs' favorite thing, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Is there anything wrong with talking about possibilities? Absolutely not. And Mel does a lot of that, but he's clear about, this is a crazy thing I heard. Let's just all look at it. And because he's doing lives and he does them a lot, And especially if you're in the middle of the night and like it's like having a friend who's talking about the true crime stuff. I think that's great. And a lot of channels do that. The problem is you're not just sitting in your living room talking about crazy stuff. You are transmitting the information as the host of the channel out to the world. And so there's talking about crazy things and getting excited about what if, and then going to that conclusion. So I like Ikenmel because you do hear a lot of what everybody's thinking, and he'll read through the Reddit. I went down a couple Reddit things about this. I mean, just to see what are people saying. And then look back, is it substantiated by what law enforcement has let out? Is it? And then is it substantiated by what the press is saying? But the press itself is sort of echoing other things besides. The press isn't what the press used to be, right? They don't have to have a confirmation from 3 sources before they print something, like back in the old newspaper days. The TV, if you're on cable or the interwebs, you don't fall under, and the law I think doesn't exist anymore, but there was an FCC regulation that you couldn't disparage somebody's personality without, like it was defamation, but even worse, it was about political stuff, but also you couldn't just say whatever you wanted to, your opinion, without it being based in something, because you could be sued. And it was thought that when news entities say something, people take it as fact, so spinning things isn't great. And now we know that since that time it stopped around the mid-80s, since that time we know that it's devolved into, the media is kind of like no different than YouTube channel people, with more money, better resources, better support, hopefully better research. But in the end, they're not always doing anything different, especially cable ones. You know who you are. I'm not going to call out certain channels, but they have gotten off the chain with, one channel has now they're using YouTubers that have a lot of numbers and putting them on as a guest on their panel, which isn't horrible, because there's some great YouTubers who are doing really having interesting investigative works, especially when the channel is big enough to have people call in from areas where something has actually happened, and you get a little bit of more, that wasn't said before. So it helps everybody, law enforcement, media, etc. But talking about theories and possibilities is, I think personally, being transmitted to audiences as probabilities. Maybe not facts. Some things they are saying as facts, and then we find out no, they're not. For instance, with the Idaho story, we have a problem with people who were in elected positions. They're politicians. They're elected, which means they have to be popular with their voters, which means they have to make their city and area look safe and nice and not threatening. So people now, 4 weeks after the crime occurred, so this is exactly the 4-week mark today, and everybody's like, it's been a month. Okay, well, a month is really almost 5 weeks. And it has been 4 weeks, which isn't that long of a time considering the amount of data and the complexity of the crime. But people are very like, oh my God, what is going on? And they're also already retelling things that happened previously, and they're changing it. I mean, sometimes to be opposite. Sometimes different people said something. How does that cause a problem? Well, if we're going to find out what happened, we do need people to trust law enforcement to talk to them. Law enforcement owes nobody, not even the victims' families, any information. Zero. They owe the victims everything to find out who's responsible, and not only to know, but to be able to prove it in a court of law so that that person doesn't get away, because murder charges can only be brought once. If you get convicted not guilty, there's no going back. So people involved in prosecuting these crimes and bringing it to fruition, the investigators. If you've watched any true crime, people who were old investigators, you can see they get so passionate about the victims and their families, but the victims themselves, the victims no longer have a voice. Law enforcement, the investigators are trying to figure it out. And people screaming for, you need to be transparent about what you know while in the midst of an investigation, are being, in my opinion, unethical, and they're doing it because they need information. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so at the beginning of a crime, there's lots of information that goes out because you find out who was hurt, where were they hurt, who's connected to them. The police will usually come out right away and say something, right? So you get a lot of information just about who, what, where, when, how, in little, you know what I mean? That a lot of that comes out at the beginning. It's not always correct, but I mean, and then when the names come out, everybody can go online with Google now. And that's a lot of, unfortunately, that's a lot of content. Meaning people can make a video about it. They can, a 24-hour news cycle needs something, you know, without a cuckoo president, you know, there's a lot, they need something to talk about. What are they going to talk about? I mean, there are news events, but everybody talks about the same thing. So, there's this, true crime is a thing they know that people are interested in marketing-wise. That's numbers. So numbers are clicks. Clicks is, you know, advertising. Advertisement is money. So at the beginning, everybody's kind of happy because there's so much, right? But as we get past the time of the initial investigation and the investigators have crap loads of data. They've got digital data. They've got interview data. They've got background data. They've got people working on, you know, from the injuries and everything. What kind of person did this? They've got the data from the actual crime scene, forensics. And, you know, within forensics, there's the blood, the DNA, the trace evidence, you know what I mean? There's so much to go through. And I'm sure there's different teams doing all this, right? There's nothing to tell the public. What could they tell the public? Well, they could tell them possibilities, but possibilities are not probabilities, or they're not facts. So if they can only tell you facts, they're going to tell you what they know up front, and then they're investigating. They don't know other facts. And do we want them telling us probabilities, possibilities? If you've ever been accused of something that you didn't do because, well, maybe you had some similarities. There was, well, it's like, well, maybe, you know, that's why our whole justice system exists. We don't do witch hunts anymore. We don't say, oh, that old lady cursed at my children, and I know that then my cow died. She did it. She's a witch. And people died over that in the 1600s, if you think that's not true. So even in the 2020s, we have phenomena where people have enough similarity or are different enough, they are the other, that like the neighbor guy who talked to, all he had to do was talk to the people. He's weird. He doesn't look right. He doesn't act right. He did it. That is what happens. So the news is saying, we need more information from the cops. So if they were more transparent, basically if they were more transparent, we would stop being critical of them and we would leave them alone, which sounds like a threat to me personally. Oh, tell me more, or I'm going to go and we're going to do a bunch of segments about how you suck. Sorry to use that word. Okay, so I, at the beginning of this, said, after we hear facts, then people start going after and doing things. And one of the things that got mixed up from the very beginning was the initial people who said this was a one-off, which was such horrible language, was the mayor. He was not, I doubt he was at the crime scene. Doubt he has any information about anything. He is in charge of making sure economics come to Moscow, Idaho. And then, of course, the school's upset, right? This is all this all looks really bad. People don't want to go to a city with a unsolved, huge, horrible murder to children that have seemingly not any reason to have been murdered. So he was the first one out. Immediately. I believe it was Sunday, 4 weeks ago. He went out. The next person that said something, I don't know if the order was the prosecutor and then the coroner. Okay, so two things to understand. Okay, prosecutors just like mayors, are elected. And they have to show that they're tough on crime. So they're going to say things like that indicate, yeah, we've got this. Number one. They also are lawyers, and since they're politician lawyers, yeah, they're running for office, so they're going to want to talk and chat, even when maybe they shouldn't, and have to be told to, shut the front door. And the coroner. If you watch Duty Run, if you watch Police Off the Cuff with Bill Cannon and Phil Grimaldi, sorry, Phil, very good YouTube channels, highly recommend. They do say things from a law enforcement's perspective. That's what you're going to get. I mean, I try to take the perspective of everybody. People like Mel, who are high energy, very open, bright YouTubers, right? Who are like representing the average person, like, and they present things in a really fun way. Then you have law enforcement people, and there's different kinds of law enforcement, detectives, cold case workers. I just found a new guy, Ken Maines, who his YouTube channel is called Unsolved No More. He used to just do cold cases. Now, since he's gotten a lot of like huge amounts of people watching him because he said great things and was very articulate about how to go through this type of case, like from the law enforcement side, investigator side, he's gotten a lot of people asking him to do things. So now he's going to do some, real current true crime. Welcome to the craziness. He's Unsolved No More by Ken Maines. Very good channel. Again, though, like if he's unapologetically himself. So is Duty Run. So is Bill Cannon. Do I agree with every single thing they say, politically, socially, all their opinions? Not everything. I don't agree with everything Mel says. I don't agree with everything Linda from It's a True Crime says. I don't agree with everything Gigi on Pretty Lies and Alibis. Do I watch all of them? Yes. Do I think they're all ethical? Yes. So these are the people, and I'll tell you in my show notes down below when I do a case, who I got from what and where and why. I trust them. The negative ones, I'm not going to mention them by name because I'm not here to put anybody else down. But just know that if, I'll tell you who I think gave accurate information and didn't give. Some people I really like a lot, and they start out on one case and they're just great at it. And really, I love watching them. And then it is people feel compelled to do what is popular. Like I didn't wear Uggs. I'm wearing Uggs today. Not that you care, but I'll just show you. See my Uggs? Sorry. These are my Uggs. They're comfortable. Everybody, and they are, I guess they're kind of ugly, but see, I'm wearing them with a cute little skirt. I didn't wear Uggs at first. I didn't because everybody else does. That's who I am. Oh, if everybody likes it, it's just popular, I'm not going to do it. So that is all just to say, when everybody jumps on something and because it's popular and it's getting lots of clicks, they might not be giving you accurate information. They might be telling you more what's hot and hip to get the clicks, to get the likes. They put crazy things like, oh my God, there was a scream. We'll cover it. That is not accurate. Somebody even produced a fake scream. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You Google, hashtag Google that shit. But you can find out. The person apparently, allegedly, even changed an article. The article's author said, yeah, it was changed. So that is not alleged. That is accurate. So this case is crazy. So I just want to run down what we've learned new since the last time I uploaded. So it's been about 12 days. As well as I'm going to tell you what are possibilities, strong possibilities that I believe in personally, and then I'll break them down to, so what does this probably mean, and I'll tell you what sources to go to. The other thing, if you know my channel, we drink sometimes. We had a sober October, but I used to have a drink per case, and I was getting sloshed, and like I don't drink that often, so I don't know why. True crime grapevine, grapes, wine. That was my thought process. Have a drink. This, as you can see from the handle, here, I'll show you a little closer, is a copper mug. It has, that's right, a Moscow Mule. What's in a Moscow Mule, you ask? Oh, that's good. Okay, so what I did was, there's ginger beer, which I thought was alcoholic. It's not, I guess. I used Fever Tree, I believe. I used the New York Times recipe, but I did tweak it a little to be holiday-ish. So I put a little cranberry juice in it, but you put in, and I put in too much. I made a whole pitcher full. 2 ounces of vodka. I used Tito's. I said that funny, didn't I? Tito's. You use 3 ounces of ginger beer, and then half an ounce of lemon or lime juice. Okay, so what did I do different? Well, I screwed up. Dyslexia, and a lot of my dyslexia is with math. And I put in 3, I was gonna like triple it to make a pitcher full. I put in 3 bottles, and the bottles have 6.8 ounces, not 3 ounces. So I doubled my doubled recipe, and it was so gingery. When I took my first sip, it burned my mouth. I was like, wow, it's kind of too much ginger. All right, so only half of a can per drink, and then like 2 jiggers of vodka and 1 jigger or 1 little ounce of lime juice. Now I also put in some cranberries, and then I put in a little maraschino cherries because I like cherry juice, and the cherries are festive because, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing my festive December wear. Okay, so that's that. So we have a Moscow Mule holiday style. The ginger aftertaste is very refreshing. I highly recommend it. It's my first Moscow Mule. We're ready. I've got my red readers to look at my notes. And so I've sort of gotten us into why I'm talking about the case. I'm going to tell you the updates, and there's not that many, but we're going to review what are facts, what are probabilities, and what are possibilities. So here we go. Also, before we start officially with my notes, I just want to also say there is another new channel that I really like that I think you would also like if you like me, is Surviving the Survivor. It's a guy whose mom was in the Holocaust. She's the survivor, and he's saying, like, basically, I'm surviving doing a podcast with her. But anyways, I think he's ex-FBI. He's really fabulous, but his guests, he had on Ann Burgess from, Ann Burgess is the woman who's in the Netflix series Mindhunter. She was the psychologist who came from, I forget which, it was an Ivy League school, was it Princeton? That she worked with the 2 behavioral unit. They call them Holden. They changed all their names, but she was that woman. Anyways, and she spoke on his show. It was fascinating. But he always starts with, let's not forget the victims. So, let's not forget the victims. We have Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. To them. So, whatever you have to drink, say a little prayer for them. For the investigators, or good vibes, or whatever you do. And the investigators that are trying to solve this in this maelstrom, this media maelstrom, and to their families who are navigating horrible waters right at the, height of a holiday season. So, yeah. To them. And to the residents of Moscow, Idaho. Can you imagine? We know there's 25,000 people there. Half of them are university students. One also important geographical data point is that the University of Washington is right across the state line in Pullman. And that is only like 8 miles away, so about 10-15 minutes drive. So when we think of an isolated town, on Mel's show, he had somebody who called in. They were from a smaller Pennsylvania town, and they were saying how college towns aren't like just small towns where you know everybody. Because Mel was saying, like, so, like, you can hear them, you know when the college kids are there, but you don't always interact with everybody from the college. And thinking of two college towns close together, it's one of those things, like, not necessarily did they know, even if the person was from the area, would they have known them and run into them. And that is a possibility. We don't know that it's a probability. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting to mention that there was another college town, and that those two towns, people would date and party and go back and forth right across the state line because they're so close in proximity. So that does add, it's not like this is a teeny tiny isolated place and there's a killer amongst them, but it's, you know, not huge metropolis, and there could be somebody still around. In fact, this Saturday, my child graduated from our local university. A lot of universities had their winter, or they call it fall or winter graduation. The Moscow Vandals, which is the mascot for the University of Idaho, had their winter graduation, which Kaylee Goncalves, that is so hard to say, I'm so sorry, would have graduated. She was finishing her degree, and then she was going on a trip to Europe, I believe, and then she was going to do her Texas internship. So that's, I think she was supposed to graduate in winter. I know her classes were over. I don't know if maybe she was graduating in spring, because somebody reported her name wasn't in the program. So maybe she was graduating, she was leaving school because she was done with coursework, and then she had her internship. So that's probably why her name wasn't in the program. I did hear that they did honor all four murdered students. The other thing, the person, I don't know if it was Captain, the Chief Fry, or if it was the president of the university, but they did warn people to please, when you're celebrating graduations, still walk in groups. So, as I said, is there a killer among them? Maybe not. Maybe it is a possibility that it could be another college student. It's a possibility it could be a neighborhood person. Possibility it could be somebody from Washington. We don't know. Probably the best guess is that the person lives within 3 hours, because there is a 4 to 5 hour window in which the murders could have been accomplished, and when people became aware. So somebody said with those hours in between, there's like probably a good 3 hour window to drive, do the crime, and then go back. That would be the furthest away. All right, so that's our geography lesson for the day. What are our new facts? Okay, our new facts are, the big one was that the law enforcement put out a be on the lookout, or a BOLO, you've heard from crime shows, for a white Hyundai Elantra. They think it's the years 2011 to 2013. I'm going to tell you why I think that's how they're distinguishing it, because we don't know why. Did they see this on a tape? But they don't have the plate number. They want to just speak to the occupants. They say it was in the neighborhood around the time that they think, around 3 a.m. So around the time of the murders. Everybody's hypothesizing, it was seen on a ring door. Maybe it was seen on somebody's camera. Maybe whatever. How do we know this? Because we don't have a tag. We don't have a specific year. We have like a model looking number. How would they know the model was those 2 years? A second fact that we know was body camera was released. And body camera was released because somebody did a FOIA. So a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act. Somebody FOIA'd all the body cam from the incidents that occurred that night from the Moscow, I think it was the Moscow police. I think it was the Moscow Police Department, or it could have even been campus police. I forget which one it came from. But Freedom of Information Act states that if, that the public has a right to see that. So somebody filed that probably immediately as soon as this hit the paper, somebody interested in this. The body camera footage came out. Now, in the body camera footage, there's two different officers. And I was confused. Everybody's like, there's a white car and its lights turn off as soon as the officers get near it. So they're in this lower field. Where the girls are is in this upper neighborhood up on a hill. We've seen pictures of it. And then a little further away, like down another terraced hill, that's where we see the Sigma Chi, where the fraternities are, pretty near their house, like not too far away, right outside the ring of off-campus housing. And then there's like a road at the bottom of this hill, and then there's like this big field. It was called a band field. Literally, I think it's the field the band practices on. There's drunk students. I think there's two incidences recorded. One of a guy who was of age, and then one of these three kids who were not of age. And it's, as in one of them, you can see the officer's body cam pans past a car, but I think it's the car the officer gets into. I don't know. I don't think it's a car right there. I think that's also the tape that you can hear in the background, somebody, I think, driving by, because it sounds like it's right near where the police officer is asking questions. They say, stop, don't do that, or something. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's the girls. You can hear them screaming. Okay, they are at least a football field away from the house, and the house is like way up at the hill. Like, no, you don't hear somebody's voice right there. And it wasn't a scream from far away. I mean, I think you maybe if somebody was murdered on the outside of a house or with an open window, yes, I think then you could have heard maybe very faintly a yell, but you wouldn't. No, this was like a voice saying, stop that, leave me alone. And it sounded like somebody who was annoyed, either driving by or walking by, more drunk students. So this body cam does, the second one is aimed at right where the girls are. The guy speaking, like he's on the far side of the field. There's this field, the rest of the field, and then up into the hills where the fraternity house is, and then further up a little bit to the right where the house is, where the girls were staying. I watched Zav girl, who is Tiffany. She's also from Ohio. Now, she's willing to consider anything. She has a call-in show, and she got, during the Kylie Rodney case, she seems to be friendly with this, I'm not going to say his name, but somebody who was saying like Kylie Rodney wasn't real, and it was like a false flag, like crazy, insane, horrible, unproven. I don't know if he's okay, but paranoid things. But he apparently has a second career and had like millions of followers who swarmed other people on the internet when they didn't agree with what it was. So I think Zav has gotten a little bit of a black eye from being involved. But she is seriously somebody who is so kind to anybody's perspective, and I think maybe too kind sometimes. But she herself is not, she always says maybe, I don't know, possibility. The problem is she'll let people go on and on about a crazy improbability, like insanity, like that thing. But irregardless of all of that, she had this video. She's really great with, she spends a lot of time playing around with filters and like video camera stuff, and she's got great technological skills to overlay it. So she overlaid daytime and nighttime where those buildings were, and then she had little boxes that correlated exactly to the space where you see from very far away a light blinking. And some people were saying, oh, that's the lights of the house going out. which the body cam says it's at 2:56, which is when the girls were trying to get a hold of Kaylee's boyfriend, and maybe they did then shut off the lights. Although I think they were probably calling in the room and looking at their phone. It was dark, but again, that's completely my imagination. So who knows? But it doesn't seem like a light. It seems to me like it's shaped like eyes. Like how headlights look from far, far away. And they it really looks like it's backing up. And you know how you see it slightly and then moving? Either that, or on Mel's show, somebody brought up, it looks to them like when they blink out, when they're like, when you have your automatic thing, you shut the door, and then okay. But it's the lights, whatever those lights are right up, definitively. You can see them overlaid. They're right where that house is. So now we're back to facts. They want to see a certain, they know a car was there and they think it's these years. Now a YouTuber did all this and convinced me, yes, that looks accurate. It looks like a car either coming, leaving, something right at that time. I'm assuming the FBI have enough filtering equipment and can do visual database information. Maybe they could see this is from this type of car these years. That's what that light is. And then, or maybe a certain number of vehicles similar to that, and then actually have been going through any cameras coming in and out of that neighborhood and think they saw a white Elantra. That's what I think. So I think those two pieces of information are connected. I also think it's important to remember the police did not just give out that body cam information. It legally they gave it to the person who requested it. And I don't know if it was a news station, news reporter, whoever, but then it became public. I don't think they wanted that out because they don't want to tip off. I'm sure they are going through all the Honda, Elantra, renters, leasers, owners themselves, and they don't want to give somebody a heads up. But once it's released, then they're going to ask for help. That's what I think. I don't think or God forbid, the internet people alerted. I doubt. The FBI had to have known first. Okay, I'm just going to say it. All right, let's take another sip. Gingery. I think that the other problem with the Elantra, not another problem, not the other problem. Another issue with the Elantra is we don't know I think it could also just be they want to know if somebody was pulling up, even if they left at that same time, did they want to know something? Like they want to know, like, did you see anything? What did you see? What went on? Did you hear anything? Was anybody walking? I don't think, personally, again, now we're into my own idea of probability and possibilities. I think not only is it possible, I think it's probable that the person who did this walked in through that and walked out through the wooded area. We found out that not only unless they parked somehow in that area behind the house. That's the other thing. Everybody is so sure which window the person went in. Oh, it had to be the back slider door. We're going to talk about what Steve said. Steve being Kayla's dad. I am more convinced that somebody walked in, walked out. I don't know. But if they did drive in, that light does not look to me like it's on the other side of the house, like where that extra road is, but maybe it is. To me, it looks like it's right next to the house, like right almost that in front of the house, or the house next to it, which somebody might live in that we know. I don't know. It's very interesting. I would like to know more about the white Elantra. The problem I was speaking of is apparently that is a car that is one of the ones that big for retail, for renting, which isn't great if it's a rental. Although I guess if it's a rental, but I mean, rentals can be stolen more easily. I don't know. Rentals have a lot of people in them. So if you do DNA, you can find a car that's an Elantra that's in the right, that the headlights show that it's this age, great, let's test it, and you get a million things. This is all going to take a lot of time because you have to correlate all the evidence. It's crazy. But so that white Hyundai Elantra, years 2011 through 2013, hopefully I have a picture of it somewhere around me if I can get that in the editing process. That is what we are all looking for, and if you know anything, you know to call the tip number, which I will have in the show notes, and which is everywhere online. If you know anything, please say something. All right, so those are what we know for sure. The other thing is, okay, law enforcement puts out a fact sheet or what's going on sheet, I think almost daily. They put it out in an email. Now, somebody, we'll get to who, Steve, somebody was like, oh, and they're getting less, they have less people coming to Idaho, they have less people coming to Moscow, the police numbers are going down, this case is going cold. All right, people. The Moscow numbers have gone down with number of police involved. Why? Let's think about this, shall we? On one hand, hold on. On one hand, we have, this case is going cold. They've had 4 weeks to do this. What are they doing? On the other hand, we have, why would they have less people? That we need to keep the number of people there the same. Okay. From watching all the law enforcement people and all the other cases that we've watched, let's think about this. When a thing first happens, they need local police, probably campus police, state police. Everybody comes in and canvasses. What does that mean? You need hundreds of people, and they physically canvass the area. So you have people looking everywhere for evidence outside the residence, inside the residence, nearby the residence. You have people interviewing the residents, relatives, friends, other witnesses, the other people in the house. All the neighbors have to be canvassed, knocking on all those apartment doors, all the houses, going probably to all their professors, going to all the peoples in their classes, going to the fraternities, going to their sororities, going to their places of business, going to the bar where they were last seen, talking to the food truck people. Exponentially, those number of people that need to be spoken to, interviewed, and things that need to be categorized, cataloged, photographed, picked up, put into bags, given to a lab, all of that together. How many people do you think are doing all that? Especially the people walking out and either like fanning out in every direction looking for things and talking to everybody in that town. So if we figure that it's been 4 weeks, let's assume that in that 3 to 4 week time window, they did all that. They don't need that same number of people constantly because we've spoken to everybody. And now we're going through, and now this is the slog. This is, if you've ever done any research, this is where sometimes it's a problem when you have too much data. You collect so much evidence, so much information, that now you have to make sense of it. And a lot of this is qualitative information, meaning you're not sticking something into a machine and getting a number spit out at you. It is, let's look at all the interviews. And there's people transcribing the interviews. There's people looking at the transcription and listening to make sure it's correct. Then there's people analyzing the information as fact in it and building like timelines and building facts from that. There's other people reading that and looking at language structure and does this sound right? Does this person sound right? Okay, does this person sound clear? Does this person sound afraid? Do they sound like they're lying? Send somebody back and speak to them again. They go out and do that. Then we have more evidence. So we're just, at this point, you don't have a lot. You don't need as many people, but the people that you have are all the experts. You get less and less people as the adjudication. You go from like the crime, initial investigation, and patrols to you keep getting smaller and smaller. But those people involved keep getting more and more specialized and familiar with what's going on and what they do. So it is a cognitive error that is common with small children to think that bigger is better, more means better. In some ways, we are all children when we're inexperienced with something. So if you're an expert, you would know like a few good whatever is way better than a bunch of junk. When you're a kid, though, more is always better. When you're inexperienced, you're like, well, but we need more. It's better if we have more people, right? It is not better to have more people in an investigation. Another reason why it's not better is at the very beginning, you need all hands on deck to go look everywhere for every possible thing. But as you get the things and you're starting to create ideas and you're getting some information back, you don't want everybody knowing it. No, you want your circle tight. You don't, who's the perpetrator? We don't want them, you don't want your perpetrator, your unsub, if you watch Criminal Minds, you don't want your unknown subject to know what you know because you are hunting them. If you've ever played strategy in any game, you know that you try to hold back something. If you played poker, you don't want them knowing what's in your hand. So it is ridiculous, but it's still understandable. But I'm saying when you, the viewers, hello viewers, when you're listening to information on my channel, any other channel, I would hope that you, and I think you, can all think critically and reason critically and problem solve critically. That you, when you hear something like that, I want you to go, oh, grieving father. Oh, family who can't believe this. Of course they want more because they are not specialists in this area and they don't understand what they're doing. I'm going to leave that at that with the numbers. So I also heard one of the ones I listen to all the time, one of my sources on the interwebs, also follow up on this line. The last 2 weeks it seemed to be very popular to say the case is going cold and they're not being transparent. Like they're hiding something. Number one, those two things don't go together because the case going cold is not the same as investigators pulling things in, having everything they have from the public, and then working hard. That takes time, and they're not going to tell us because that's dumb. They're not going to tell us because they've probably got some good stuff, like people who look good for it. They probably got a couple of them. Then they've got people that maybe, I don't know. And then they've got outliers. But if they told everybody everything, all the frenzy would go towards those people and attack them and dox them and ruin their lives. That's not, and then they could sue the law enforcement for making them look like you ruined my life, you wrecked my reputation, that it's not me, you can't prove it's me, and you put my name out. That's why law enforcement doesn't say boo about anything, because they have a legal responsibility to not accuse people without evidence. And we all want that because we don't want to be accused. So I'm going to try not to just accuse people. And when I tell you about who's being talked about as possibilities, I'm going to use initials. I'm not saying last names ever because I want to have, I'm not going to be a popular channel probably ever because I'm not going to play up that game. I'm not going to say crazy things that might make you feel good in the moment and then we find out are wrong and then I look like an idiot. I'm not doing that. I do want you though to hear what other people are saying, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm just going to try to talk about it in a responsible way and not out people by name. Is that a deal? Shall we drink on it? Let's drink on it. Okay. Moscow Mule. Great pairing for the Moscow, Idaho. All right. Another thing that we do know for sure, so sort of for sure, there was an incident, and I'm going to talk about it in my Steve Says section, where, so at the very beginning, again, this goes back to what I said about the reiteration. At the very beginning of this, there was was anybody ever interested in Kaylee? Did any, and Kaylee's sister initially was like, no. She had a normal life. She had a great life. She had great friends. And then she talked about her boyfriend, who she had recently, they were on a break, like Ross and Rachel, right? And now, and then I think midway, like week 2, going into week 3, she was asked, did Kaylee have a stalker? And she said, I don't know where that's coming from. Then in the end of week 3, towards week 4, then we heard from the dad of, yes, she had a stalker. I mean, yes, what? Okay, so the police now, because of all of this talk about she was the target, and she had a stalker, like, oh, the police are so stupid, why wouldn't they look into that? All right, number 1, nobody knows if one person was targeted, if the house was targeted, if the person targeted people like them. We don't know. And nobody knows that. And if anybody tells you they know that, they are lying to you. Until we know who did this, we don't know their motivation. And the probabilities are people who are behavioral, real FBI behavior analysis people who not just are smart and educated about behavior analysis, but people who have the information that we don't have. So we don't know any of that. But law enforcement forced to tell us, because now there's like this media frenzy about it. No, they looked into this. There were 2 people who did walk up to Kaylee, or 2 people who were around, and one who sort of like got close to her, then withdrew, then kind of, and she, I guess, noticed that and was like, what a freak, what's that guy doing? I mean, pretty girls by 21 sort of kind of know the deal, I think, but yeah, that might freak you out. Who's that? There was a freak, he was trying to talk to me, whatever. Listen, they said they talked to the people involved in this, that it was an incident in a store downtown, that the guy was trying to approach Kaylee to talk to her because they were trying to pick up girls. That's what they said. That is what we know. That is all we know. Could it be more? Possibly. Is that the person? That's the person. Probably not. I mean, there's another channel talking about, who has not talked to anybody involved in it, as far as I know. I mean, they are a person with a background in psychology, but they have a whole scenario that they're spinning out about how Kaylee's a really good looking girl, and she could have just like not even been mean, and some guy who is a psychopath or has some horrible mental, took it personally, and that guy was thinking about her, and she didn't even know that she had, like, just by turning him down or not speaking to him, maybe he didn't even speak to her, that he had hooked onto her, and like, whoa, we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't. All the individuals murdered in that house, and the 2 roommates who weren't, we're all very good looking, and for all that we know, popular, socially, very active, and well-liked, successful students. That's all we know. So for somebody to spin out a specific scenario to Kate about just Kaylee is ridiculous. Now, is it a possibility? Yeah, it certainly is. But to speak of it as a probability is concerning to me. I'm just saying. All right. I talked about the region being a thing. Oh, the other fact that we heard was about the dog Murphy, the doodle. I have a doodle next door to me. Now, he does bark, but only when he sees me, like when he knows, like to alert me, hey, come play with me, because I'll go play with him. Otherwise, he's not a barky dog, but he barks to be friendly, to say, hey, look at me. Nobody heard the dog barking that night. The dog was found in a separate room. We don't know what room. the dog was not covered in evidence like people were suggesting. Like, oh my God, they took it to the Humane Society and the police were so stupid in that little town. Okay. No. The dog wasn't full of blood. As far as we know, Murphy was in a separate room. Now, how did that occur? Did Murphy always sleep in a separate room? I don't think so. I mean, I doubt it. I don't know, though. I don't know. Did that third bedroom have a crate in it? Was that where the dog slept? Did they crate the dog at night? Maybe. Some people are very, if you've had dogs, some people, it's like, this is how we raise dogs. Dog doesn't sleep in our bed, but this dog was in this house. It's kind of seemed like maybe they would be more lax upon that. Doesn't mean the dog knew the person, which is everybody's like, oh, it means the dog knew the, okay. All we know, though, is that the dog was in a separate room. So perhaps, however the person got in, when they see a dog, they put it in a bathroom, in an extra bedroom. They shut the door. Maybe. We know the dog was in a separate room. So that's a probability. Probably, I think that dog was put in there by the person who did the crime. But it's only possible that they didn't kill the dog because they knew it. Maybe they just didn't kill the dog because why? That's not what I'm here for. We don't know. All right. Those are the facts that are new, that have been specifically acknowledged. That they're looking for a white Hyundai Elantra for the years 2011 to 2013. That the body cam was released, and that's just body cam. Now the police are saying there's nothing on it, but they don't have to, tell us everything. But there are YouTubers who see everything in there. We do know that the numbers of law enforcement working on the case did drop, which I said, they're done canvassing, they're done interviewing huge amounts of people. That makes sense, nothing nefarious there. And the Kaylee being stalked, that was addressed, and the dog was addressed. And the region, we said something. Okay, so the timeline. So here's something that the police want to know about specifically. While all the talk, and we'll talk about why, has been of Kaylee and Maddie, Ethan and Xana, their timeline has a big gap. All we know for sure is they were seen at the Sigma Chi house, which is Ethan's fraternity, which is the fraternity house just down the hill. If you walk out the back door and went down a ways, the first thing you would run into is the Sigma Chi house before you would go down further, run into the band field, then over to the campus. They were there from around 8 to 9 p.m. And then we were told they got home at 1:45 p.m. Now, we also heard that the other girls got at home at 1:45, and I'll talk to you about that was corrected, and then the police had to correct it after the other person corrected it. But I'm pretty sure the police are very interested in the time before the killings. They want all the data. What happened at 1:45 until? They want to know what happened before the girls got home. Now, if everybody would quit shutting up about, no, they're telling him, first of all, I guess I can see the logic in, no, you're telling them a time that's too early. We really need them to be looking after 1:56. No, because we know what happened. I mean, we know that they got home. Yes, they got home at 1:56. They were dropped off. Thanks, Olivia. Good. I mean, and I understand what she's trying to correct, but the police don't want everybody knowing that detail for a reason. And the police also don't want people only thinking about after that. They want to know, yeah, but what happened before that time? That's what, I mean, if we want to talk about what's important to the police and reading the tea leaves, they want to know about 1:45 to, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's what they want to know. And regarding Ethan and Xana, they want to know, did you see them between 9 and 1:45? Where were they? They want people to know. Do they not know? Interesting. Well, listen. Remember all those people that everybody's mad that, oh, there's not as many cops anymore and blah, blah, blah. What were those people doing? They were taking statements from everybody that was at all the places known to where the 4 people were. Probably the 6 people. I'm assuming they're checking out every single living person in that house. Maybe even the person who didn't rent the house anymore, whose name we found out that was the last thing. Darn it, I forgot to tell you about. There was a name of another renter, but that renter had not been there since fall. They left right before the semester started. But I am sure they are looking at that person and all their connections too. So that's what everybody was, they have all these statements. So now they're like, okay, who's seen these 2 specifically between 9 and 1:45? And now we're going to see, did anybody lie? Because now you've got all these different statements, and now you're going to get more information. So if you saw Xana and Ethan, don't assume the police know it. Tell them. That is what I know the police want to know. What do I know about it? Now we're going to go to what is being said about it. Well, this is interesting. I have a slight advantage only in that I was part of the Greek system for a short time of my college life. And so I'm aware of things like date parties and teas. And by the way, teas are where you drink beer. It's really just a casual date party. It's where a fraternity and a sorority have they get together, and it's called a tea, but it's really a kegger. Or it was back in the day. Anyways, I'm not going to tell you exactly where in case anybody could still get in trouble. That's what teas were. Those happened every weekend. And then twice a year there were date parties where they always had a theme. Like I went to the Fiji one, and it was like a Fiji party. Like they had, they made Harry Buffalo, which I got sick on. But you dressed up like in tiki stuff. And then I think their other party, if that was the same one, their other formal was dressing up like the 20s. That was fun too. So they do like dress up parties, fun themed parties. One was like that we did in Alpha Phi was a hoedown, and you have it off campus, not so you can drink or whatever. You like have it in an event space usually, and it usually is off campus, and people usually do drink, or drink right before or drink after. But the ones I went to were all off campus, not far off campus, but off campus, at an event space, and that's Greek life. Okay, so that day, Saturday, there was a big football game, huge football game, and that football game we know was from 4 to 7. So and then we know that there was a date party it was called the Betty Ball. It's their fall formal for the Kappa Alpha Theta. I don't know if they just call I don't remember that sorority at my school, unless they were just called the Thetas. That might be them. Usually people are called something shortened, like the Tri-Delts or Delta Delta Delta. They have names for people. Chi, that's Chi Omega. They shorten them. Sig Ups for Sigma Phi Epsilon. And sororities are the girls, fraternities are the men, and then there's academic and professional. They call those just fraternities. But when we're referring to the girls, it's a sorority in this case, like Phi Beta. The 2 girls were they were Pi Phis, is which I would say, and Beta was in the middle, but usually just call them Pi Phis. And the other girl was an Alpha Phi, like me. Usually these parties are off campus, and they're at night. It's a night event, not late at night, but like 9 o'clock. It's like after dinner time, like a prom, but it's not a prom. But it's like that later. So if Xana and Ethan were at the frat house between 8 and 9, and Ethan's mom has confirmed that Ethan took his sister to, she was his +1, and it's not weird. People often just took friends. So Ethan was taken by his sister to the Betty Ball, the Thetas, and it was at a brewery, supposedly, is what I heard. I haven't confirmed that, but Ethan's mom did confirm, yes. Ethan went that night, and his brother took his sister's roommate. So all three of the triplets went to the Betty Ball. Now, we know Xana and Ethan, or at least law enforcement has said, yes, they were at the Sigma Chi house at 8 to 9. And so if the game was 4 to 7 and they were at that house 8 to 9, people are like, oh, well, the party must have been during the day. But nobody would make a date party during a big football game. No, you don't do that. Panel would say no. You don't, I mean, for all you know, people that you're inviting are cheerleaders or football players. You don't, band members, you don't do that. So I'm assuming they pre-gamed or just hung out after the football game at the Sigma Chi house. And then Ethan went to go with his sister and brother to the Betty Ball. Where'd Xana go? And there's a number of suppositions that, so I guess Xana's dad did speak to her that night, and some people are saying it was at midnight, maybe around midnight. People are saying she said she was at home watching movies. Oh, it had to be with Ethan. We don't know that. By midnight, he could have been finished. But where was Xana while Ethan was with his sister at the brewery? We don't know. What's a possibility? Well, the brewery was downtown, really close to the Corner Club. Now, the Corner Club, we know, is where the shit went down with the JS character and Maddie and Kaylee. We heard that Kaylee and Maddie went there around, I believe, 10:30. So, we've got Ethan and his sister and brother at a brewery, maybe 9 to 10, maybe. And we heard that Ethan left early. Did Xana go to the Corner Club with the girls, and did Ethan then meet her there? Now, these, not a probability. This is all possibility. But it makes sense that if they were hanging out first at the Sigap house, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go with my sister. And she's like, okay. She goes back to the house, gets ready, and goes out with her girlfriends. And they meet up Ethan later after the formal, because he's just really close by at a brewery. He just goes to the Corner Club. Now, does he go to the Corner Club and pick up Xana, and do they go do something? Do they stay at the Corner Club? What happens at the Corner Club? The Corner Club is like a sports bar, sort of like, there was a professor on one of this YouTube shows. He said, yeah, I'd go there during the day, but by 8 o'clock I'd leave. Okay, so at night, people are dancing, maybe karaoke, getting crazy at the Corner Club. Xana, we don't know. Is she with Kaylee, and is she with Maddie? There's a whole bunch about the Corner Club we don't know. We heard something went down. We heard the jackass got thrown out. We don't know, though, do we? We also don't know, was Ethan, did he go there to get Xana? Were they there for a short time? Could Xana and Ethan have left the Corner Club and gone to get food, gone to go do something? You know, whatever it might be that kids do. Get busy. I don't know, maybe she was cold. Maybe she wanted to go maybe she spilled something. Like, maybe she bled through her pants. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons that you would want to leave and come back. We don't know. Or did they just go home then, and they were home by midnight? Maybe. But what if the private party that we can't get any information about, that was in the car, what if the private party that picked up the girls was, hold on a second. So that's it for what we know for sure from the police. I hope that was close. And the timeline about that I was talking about. All right. Another channel was talking about a possible subject that we don't know. Hi, Sadie Mae. That we don't know about. Hadn't heard anything about before. It's a local person. The man is 39 years old. He apparently had a domestic altercation with his wife and was arrested. He was arrested last week. So in the beginning of week 4, like at the end of week, he had been arrested, I believe, soon after, but we just heard about him last week. He had an altercation, a domestic violence with his wife and his 15-year-old daughter, who had a year-old baby with her 21-year-old boyfriend, which let's just talk about. That's a whole other situation happening there. And I was like, is anybody going to talk about a 15-year-old girl with a 21-year-old? I'm thinking, we just got over the Wagner case. Didn't we hear about a situation like that? I don't know what statutory and, the big R is in Idaho, because, Idaho's got the huge Mormon population. And not that, typical Mormons are up for having your 15-year-old date somebody who's 21 and have a baby, but I just don't know about the legality of that there. So I thought that was interesting that that's sort of like an aside to this situation. The man attacked something, I forget how it started. He was going to harm himself. He had a knife. His wife wanted him not to harm himself. He locked himself in a room. She came in. He attacked her, bad. Not with the knife, actually, with his hands. That's the other thing. He's only done things with his hands, and then there was a 2007 incident. Apparently, somebody came to his house and wanted money from him or something, and there was an altercation with the man, and he said, oh, you're cheating with my wife. He seems to be paranoid about people cheating with his wife, because that was part of this discussion, too, and then beating the heck out of her. Mel had a good conversation about... look, this whole thing, whatever we learn from it, that lady needs to get away from this guy. But the guy in 2000, I think it was 2007, he did, but it wasn't with a knife. It was, I believe he shot that man. Anyways, so he's unhinged. It all involved substance abuse. He drank a whole pint of rum or whiskey before he attacked his wife. I mean, not that that's any excuse, but I'm saying this guy, and he had a cut on his arm. So everybody's like, oh, he had a cut, he was holding a knife, he lives a mile from the girls, it's him. All right. So let me just tell you, if you listen to any of the profilers, this person, they still don't have an entry point. Now there's scuttlebutt about the door may have been opened. And I think I heard about an open door when it first was reported before we even knew what this was. At 8 o'clock in the morning, somebody saw the door open. But regardless, it doesn't seem there's a break-in. Nobody broke in that house. So I'm calling it a clean entry and a clean exit, because there was no trail of blood. Do you remember the Oksana Gal in, I believe it was New Jersey or New York, the case where she had a past relationship, dalliance, if you will, with her contractor, and he wanted it to continue and she didn't, and her husband was out of town going to a college with her kids, and they ended up going, anyways, the husband was out of town in California, and she ended up being unalived in her basement, and her son was upstairs on the 3rd floor asleep. The assailant, her ex-lover, had taken her, she was breaking up with them. He had come over, and she was like, no, this is ending. He grabbed her, took her down into the basement, and unalived her there with a knife, put her into a rolling hockey bag of the kids, and then was seen on doorbell cameras just with a person with a hoodie going down the street, and left a blood trail. So that was a crime of passion. It was unplanned. He was an idiot. He just left it on a corner near some woods, ran through it where he took off his jacket and just leaving his blood trail, DNA trail, and plus she had written a note, I gotta break up with this guy. I don't know. It was just ridiculous, the amount of evidence that was there. He wasn't getting away with anything. And it still took a couple weeks to figure it out, or not for us the police to figure it out, but for it all to come out publicly. So why am I telling y'all this? When people have issues with domestic violence, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're able to plan a quadruple murder and not leave any signs of any obvious signs that the public saw. So with that Gall case, we saw he left a huge trail of blood. I mean, it's not easy to knife somebody and not get it on you, get it all over. What are you doing? Like if you try to move the body, bad news, right? So I don't think this person matches the type of organization, and like everything he's done has been when he's angry with his wife and drunk off his you know what, and is emotional, and he never used a knife to kill somebody. He was like strangling his wife when his daughter tried to intervene, then he went after her. I mean, he's all kinds of messed up, but just because he lives a mile from there, I don't know how many domestic abusers probably live a mile in a town that's only a couple miles wide. I mean, I'm sure you can find a couple of them, right? And so when you hear about this man, he's 39 years old, he lives a mile from him, he's a messed up individual, and I think his wife should leave him, and I don't know, the whole daughter with the older boyfriend, like that's whole, I mean, that whole situation is its own situation, but I don't personally think it has anything to do with this case. All right, so that's that I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Sorry, the online sleuths make the count. Okay, that was the DV guy. Yeah, I just don't think he's got the personality that would be required. So, and I talked about the all about the Hyundai thing. Okay, so now we're to my favorite part of my thing called Steve Says. We had the Steve Says show the past week and a half on true crime. I call it the Steve Says show because Steve Gonkalovs, the father of Kylie, has since just prior to the memorial been going on as many shows as possible and dropping as much information, which I don't know if it's accurate or not, but like big, huge things that nobody should know, the specifics of the crime. And he was acting so erratically, I mean like so antithetically, I should say. It wasn't really erratic because it seemed purposeful, but he was acting so antithetically to what one would expect that a profiler, a guy he's I think his last name's Gillum. He's very well respected. He was like, I don't think he said, I think he's the killer. He said, he is talking like the killer. He is talking like a killer. What did he mean by that? Well, he's inserting himself into the investigation. He is giving out information that if withheld, the police would know like these things, and if a suspect said something about it, they'd be like, oh, how do you know? How do you know the girls were in the room together? How do you know they weren't in their own bedrooms? I mean, that's something the killer knows. Oh, the girls were killed a little bit differently. Their wounds were different. Okay. How do you know? I mean, the killer knows. That's what the killer knows. I did more to this person than that person, and this is how. I know they weren't in their regular bedrooms. I know that they were together. They were in the same bed, in the same bedroom. How do you know? Now, not only how does he know, but why is he telling everybody this? Like, has nobody... He and his family have claimed they're really big into... Like, they said it's so strange that their daughter would be a victim of crime because she was really careful. Kaylee was like one of us. She watched true crime. She listened to true crime shows. She knew to keep her head on swivel. You know what that means? Always be looking around. Don't be staring at your phone. Don't be walking like a victim. Head on swivel, walking. You know, she was careful. She would call her mom and say, hey, I think somebody's found me. Oh, they went into McDonald's. I guess not. But she wasn't like one of those people who didn't pay attention to her surroundings, or that she didn't know true crime, like crime could happen anywhere. So if this family knows this, why is the dad blabbing about it, to everybody and anybody? He's on News Nation, he's on Fox, he's on CNN, he's on Good Morning America. Hey, let me tell you what I know about this crime, which are things that only the criminal and the investigators should know. So, number one, how does Steve Gonkalovs know about the crime? Well, it appears one of his statements was about the girls' injuries. he got really worked up, and his wife was saying, settle down. He's like, no, I paid for this. I paid for it. I sent my kid to school and she came home in a box. Like, no offense. Yes, he's obviously in the anger phase, but he paid for knowing about his daughter's, he goes, I'm just going to say it. Her wounds were different than Maddie's. She had it worse. They were damaged differently. And I don't know what the hell he knows. And I don't know who the hell told him. But number one, nobody should ever give that information to a family who is grieving and let them know exactly. I don't care how much money they have. I don't care how much power they have. I don't even care if they were the main investigator. No, this one you sit out, you stay out, you know nothing, goodbye. You don't tell somebody about the wounds of their kid, and you don't let them. His personality, unfortunately, sir, you seem to be like a macho man. Only I can fix it I'm better than the police. I know my kid. Very, not narcissistic, but macho. Whatever. And grief-stricken, I am sure. But he's ruining the investigation because now that's all information. The police, that might have been the three things that they knew nobody knew where the bodies were. Nobody knew. People were saying, I talked at the beginning, how the politician said, oh, this was a targeted thing, it was a crime of passion, oh, just don't look over here, we're fine, come to Moscow, Idaho, don't worry about it, right? Then, to know, and then the police were like, well, first of all, whoever did this was organized. So there was some targeting, even if it was, by targeting, I think they mean planning, and I talked about that last week too. But to have the dad come out and go, no, it was my kid who was targeted. No offense, there's 3 other kids. And he's somehow sucking up all the energy, not only sucking up all the energy and saying, look at me, look at my kid, it's my kid, it's my kid. They wanted her, it was her. But he's also ruining the investigation. Now, I did think of one really paranoid thing, which is, what if, because the cops don't know about Xana and Ethan and they really think it's targeted on them, that they're telling this guy to go out and act like a fool and distract everybody? Isn't that crazy? Now, do cops pay really, is that 3D chess? That would have to be. It's 4D chess. I guess I'm including time. I don't know. That seems silly, right? That they would say, okay, Steve, you want to help us out? You're going to go and you're going to say these things. You're going to put out information that maybe isn't true. You're going to say crazy stuff to try to see if we can get maybe a reaction from the killer. Now, that would be, Sadie Mae. Sorry, my puppy needs some attention. That is like a book, and I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think that, I don't know. That would be one explanation for why he's doing damage to the investigation and letting everybody know his business. I don't know. But what that has done, the one thing it does that I don't like is that it undercuts everybody's trust in the investigation. Because he's basically saying, oh, the police are lying about this. His daughter came out and corrected the timeline. And oh, I found the food video. We broke into Kaylee's phone. Sadie Mae, stop that. Sorry, guys. She's being a little, hey, shh. So, I don't know. Could you, I'm supposed to say like and subscribe, so hey, like and subscribe. But put in the comments, seriously, I want to know, if you've watched this far, what do you think? Could he be a, plant? Not plant, but you know what I mean? Could he be just distracting everybody? That actually would make more sense than, why is he telling people, why would you, I guess, I don't know, some people might want to see their kid, but did he see Maddie too? That was the other thing I didn't get. Kaylee was hurt the worst. Well, how do you know, sir? Either he had inside information and paid off, or he's a cyber guy. Did he hack into the system and got the autopsies? I don't think they share the autopsies with family. If you know anything about that, put that in the comments. But I'm pretty sure they don't, especially in an open crime investigation. So could he have hacked it? Did he pay somebody? Is it a small enough town where he could, like, how does he know about all four so that he could say Kaylee was the worst? And he talks about Kaylee and Maddie. Here's the other thing. Oh, he said they had to go up the stairs. That guy, they, like, basically, the girls had to be the target because they went upstairs. Well, okay, but we don't know what door they went into. That was the other thing. He's like, this is why the guy said he talks like the criminal. He came in the second he came in those slider doors on the second floor, and he didn't have to go up the stairs. Okay, number one, if he came in the second floor slider stairs, he had to go up at least one step or up the stairs to the third floor, because nobody was in the third bedroom that was on the floor with the kitchen. To get to Zaina and Ethan, the killer would have had to go up a stair, turn, go into the living room, take a left, go down a long hallway, past a bathroom to Zaina's bedroom door. So that's out of the way. If you walk into the kitchen, going up the steps is like walk into the kitchen, take a right. That's the first, like, you can either go into a darkened living room, which who the hell knows who's in there, or you can go creep up the stairs. That's if you came in the second glass slider. Somebody on Mel pointed out something that I was wondering too, and there's marks on the third floor balcony's deck on the edge. And if you look up the hills right there, and Chris McCullough on the interview room noticed that right underneath there, next to, like, around the corner from where the kitchen and patio section are, that there were some cinder blocks. And people are like, well, maybe they're low though. What are they doing right there at the end of that patio, that like side area of that lower patio? Guess what? You could use them if you were a tall guy, 6 foot something, to step up on and to pull up then onto the third floor, where there is another slider that went into what was Kaylee's room, and there's windows that go into Maddie's room. So did the person enter on the second floor, or did he go into the sliders, which I bet you $1 million weren't locked on the third floor, because who would lock them? But from that hill, I think you could easily get onto that third floor. I mean, and there's big scrapes on the edge of it, like somebody, like, so, I mean, and was the dog found in a room, or was the dog found maybe outside? There's also a dog bed that's shoved then right there. I don't know. And there's some red substance, but it looks way too bright red to be, blood right now. But if you look, if you go to, let's see, this is Sunday. It was either Sundays or Saturdays live stream by Mel. You will find where he's talking to a caller, and they have pictures of that third floor where there's like scrapes all on it. And I think that if you add that with Chris McCullough finding, and he has showed, Chris McCullough did a walk around the building, there were big, huge cinder blocks next to where they had, like, not a hibachi grill, but sort of like a Weber, a circular grill that was way around the corner from that second slider. So did someone pull up there and get around where absolutely nobody could see them, hidden completely by the trees? And did they get out that way? I don't know. But we know that there was no blood tracked all the way out through that slider door or out the front door. I don't know. And neither does anybody else. But I'm just saying, if we're talking about what Steve says, Steve Goncalves, who feels like he's got all the answers, dude, nobody said, we don't know that he didn't have the keypad number to the front. If it's somebody they know, we don't know. There was also supposition about, in the past, all the doors had been keypads, all the original doors inside the house, not just the outside. And a past renter said, well, we didn't always lock that second floor slider because people, always just came in off of it. And we didn't worry about, like, people stealing things or anything because our doors all had key locks on those as well. Were they still there? We don't know. But what is interesting is Zaina's dad said, again, and this is not from law enforcement, so I didn't put this in the facts. This is supposition. But Zaina's mother called into a show very upset. I think it's kind of whatever. She was very, like, horribly grieving. I don't think what she was saying was, I don't know. I feel very bad for her. She said that she is not with Zaina's dad, from what I understand. I think they are divorced. But Zaina had her dad come and fix her door lock. And now, was it, we don't know what door. And she doesn't either. They asked, do you mean, her bedroom door? But imagine that someone has been, like the Golden State Killer would break into homes before he attacked people and would get the layout of the home. He would maybe put a weapon that he needed in the home. He would make sure he knew the whole layout, exits, entrances. He would make sure a window was open somewhere he needed to get in. And he would know where to cut the lines. So it is very interesting, and I'm sure law enforcement is looking into it. The fact that Zaina's door, that Zaina had her dad come to fix something on a door, and it sounded like it meant her bedroom door. But if so, that means she's way more likely to be the target if someone was messing with her door lock than Kaylee. I mean, I can see, of course, every parent's going to wonder, was it my kid? And I definitely, if you watch my second video, I did say Kaylee's ex-boyfriend is a possibility, only because, not because they called him 7 times, because drunk dialing, hello, what wake up. It was more to my reasoning because they had broken up recently. She was leaving. She was just back for that weekend before she left for the holidays, and then she was going on an extended trip, and then she was going to start her internship in February. So she wasn't coming back. So that could be anybody interested in Kaylee, right? If somebody was having a fantasy about the whole, like some of the girls, all the girls, popular kids, that house and popular kids, and somehow got wind that one of them was going to be leaving, they might be like, oh, no, you don't. Not on my watch. I mean, we don't know. But the fact that Zaina's dad had to fix her lock, the fact that we don't know where Zaina was, while I think Ethan was at the formal, the date party at the brewery, we don't know where Zaina was. That to me is much more of a thing that I would like to know more about, a variable. But in the meantime, so I was writing that the rumors are, there's a media maelstrom and rumors are raging because everybody, the Steve Says show is not helping it because he's not only letting out information, but just focusing everybody on Kylie, like I said. So maybe that's a good thing if somehow the investigators want all the sleuths online and media to back off the real investigation, which is Anna. And since nobody listens hardly to my channel, only you guys know. But what if that's it? Wouldn't that be crazy? I really just think his first interview, he was much more calm and he was like normal about police, but he did say something by the second interview when he was saying somebody has to be an alpha, and he said that he was a conservative and Kaylee was a conservative, and the whole I know better than everybody else. Oh, the fact that he's a cyber expert, he's into Bitcoin. I don't know. All that stuff is on the edge of, none of them by themselves would make me worry. But a cyber person, his LinkedIn, it seems like he switches his jobs a lot. I don't know. And if you want to talk about people who have a weird background, his brother was a transient who killed somebody and is in jail for it now. I mean, it seems like I don't know. I read the case. It was in Washington. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you look into anybody's background enough, anybody can seem sketchy. So I think it's weird that he's busy throwing out, I don't know, maybe it's just a case of people who think paranoid act paranoid and then they're paranoid because they're doing, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But instead of people, so the big rumor mill and the media maelstrom is all about both that the police aren't being transparent enough and nobody knows what they're doing, and also that the case is going cold. Those two things don't match together because, like I said, these people are playing dumb, the media people for sure. They're playing dumb. Sorry, Ashley Bamfield, right? Even Nancy Gray. We all know, ladies, let's be real. We all know that after the initial investigation, like everybody's asking questions and the police need things and blah, blah, when they have all that data to work with, they're going to go quiet. They're going to go dark because they're busy. They've got shitloads of cellular dumps. And like Mel was saying, somebody was saying, oh, well, if Nancy Grace was saying if they got, they should get the cellular blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, they probably should. You guys, they have. They have. They're doing all. That's why they're quiet. They are working. That's why there's less people, because you don't have all just the regular, beat cops going out and taking statements. No, these are all the specialists who are looking over that dumped data, going through everything with a fine comb. That is what is happening. So don't buy into the case is going cold. No, they're working on the data. First was they were gathering the data. That stuff you see. You see cops out getting interviews. You hear from the people being interviewed. You see them getting people's DNA. You see them, that's what you see. But once they have all that information, they don't tell you anymore. So like a family who's like, well, I broke into my daughter's phone, and I broke into this, and I got this stuff, and he's a cyber expert. I'm like, Steve, why are you breaking into everything? Like, what else are you hacking? Did you hack the autopsy? Is that how you know about how badly your daughter was hurt? Or did you bribe? You paid for that shit, is what he said. I paid for that. Who'd you pay? Was that appropriate during an investigation? I mean, I know your family, but dude. And if you paid for it, could anybody else pay for it? That's another thing to think about. I mean, I don't know. The coroner lady, that's when I was talking about Judy Ron, he is a specialist, a death investigator, and she's named Barbara Butcher. She has talked about how the system in America is different all over different states. Sometimes people are elected, sometimes people are hired. But when they're elected, they're going to be more political. They're also not all doctors. Like this lady is a nurse and a lawyer who was the coroner who spoke and probably shouldn't have, because don't give information. She's the one that said they were stabbed. I don't know if she was allowed to say that. But I mean, did she speak more to Steve Goncalves? Did he pay her for information? Did he just get it from the, where you go to be buried? What's that called? The funeral home? I mean, and if so, did he get to see Maddie too? Did Maddie's parents agree that he could see their daughter's wounds? Because how did he compare wounds? He either broke into some report, paid for some report, bought somebody off, somebody inappropriately gave him information, or he saw, and he better not have seen all four bodies, because then I would say, what the hell is wrong with this investigation? So Jonathan Gillum, that was the guy who was on the Surviving the Survivor. He was on another show talking. He was the one saying, like, this guy's talking, this Steve says program of letting out all this information. He's talking like he knows the crime scene. He's talking about all the specifics at the crime scene. He said he sounds like the killer, because that's only the killer would know that. But I think Steve God, I can't even talk. I think the dad, with his cyber skills and internet abilities, if he broke into phones, somehow found video of the Twitch video, like, these people aren't novices. Maybe that's why. I don't know. And I'm not saying like he's a horrible person or he did anything. I am not saying that. I don't think so. But I think in his in his crazed grief, he is actually providing future prosecutions of anybody now who is caught. He's given up a lot of information that only that person would have known. Not cool. Bringing up things like defunding the police, and one of his, that was the other thing that I didn't like, him saying about being an alpha and defund the police, and I don't want to defund the police. Well, who the hell brought that up? That is why the FBI guy had a hinky feeling. He is reading all the sort of right-wing extremist statements that this person is making while describing the scene in very detailed description. Do I think that he did anything to him? No. Do I think the cops are using him to get the spotlight off of where they're really looking? No, probably not. Do I think that maybe he's worried about his daughter's ex, who they say they love, being involved? That's the other possibility. I mean, I think the most likely possibility is he's a blowhard who's used to getting his way, and he thinks he can do everything better than everybody else. You know, we've seen a president recently like that who also believes in being an alpha. I mean, that type of personality is like a bull in a china shop. So I don't doubt. That's the most likely, that's the probability. But a possibility is maybe he's just taking one from the team and the police are using him to get, you know, to put out stuff that they can use against, you know, that a killer would say, well, I know what really happened, or, you know what I mean, or just so they can look into the other angles of the other people. And I doubt that's it. That's a very low possibility. Another, but slightly better possibility is, I don't know, do they suspect Jack had something to do with it? And now they need to take the heat off him by saying, I don't know. It was really strange because Olivia, the sister, at first said that the boyfriend, she goes, yeah, she said they called a number, which I think she would know it was the boyfriend's. And I think she even said Jack 6 or 7 times. And then the next time she's interviewed about it, she's like, yeah, well, what's that about? And then the next time she's like, oh, it was the boyfriend. I mean, maybe she didn't know it was the boyfriend's number. That had to be it. But I can't believe they wouldn't know that before. She was like, yeah, the first interview, she's like, what's that about? And within a week or so, she's like, no, we believe in him 1,000%, and we're losing time, and, you know, there's only 72 hours before cases go cold, speaking like they're somehow on a TV show, which they're not part of the investigation, and they're inserting themselves. Now, highest probability is they are very grieving people who feel like they have backgrounds in technology, so, you know, and they don't trust the police because they're, you know, part of that political phenomena that feels like somehow it's law and order, but we hate the police. I don't know. It's very strange. I don't really get how the people who, I don't know, it's very strange. All I'm going to say is I don't want to get political. I feel bad for the parents, but they need to stop it because there's 3 other families. All right. Yeah, that was what I had to say about that. So, and I've been saying possibilities to probabilities. I want to give, that was Ken Main's like little quote statement, and I like it because my minor was statistics. I think I covered everything. I know I tried to be organized, and I kind of still went all over the place. Let's see. Oh, there's also rumors, which are crap, about a scream. Mel did, at first he brought it up because it was, people were like, hey, did you hear that there was a scream? And then he actually investigated it and looked. He's really good at technology. A YouTuber, there's all these J's, I'm not going to say his name, but JM, made up the scream. It was directly taken from another video that you can find online, and Mel found it with the help. He said he had help. It was a group effort. But I mean, that's why I follow Mel, because he might say, yeah, people are saying this, but then he finds out and he reports and he even investigates a little bit into, is this a rumor or not? I like it. So follow Mel, follow Ken Main's, whose YouTube is Unsolved No More. Follow Duty Run, Police Off the Cuff. Please follow, I said Mel, and the Surviving the Survivor. I really like that guy. He's got a lot of, like Duty Run, love Duty Run. He's got a lot of experts. So those are the people I think at this point we need to listen to is, you know, instead of listening to talking heads just trying to get clicks, listen to the people who are bringing on profilers, who are bringing on detectives, who are bringing on forensic people. So at Duty Run, Unsolved No More, Surviving the Survivor, The Interview Room, the Police Off the Cuff. Those are places, and then to help you get the like background of what's going on when people say crazy things and you want to not go into the Reddit deep dives, but you want to know, go to Mel, because he really talks he's educative. He educates his listeners informs them, entertains them. You might find him irreverent at times, but he's a real person, and he's got a very good heart, and he's not going to lie to you for clicks. And once in a while he has chases, which, no offense, chases is a good palate cleanser from death and destruction of all these murders. So those are the people I recommend. Those are my sources. I'm just trying to look at, you guys. I'm not kidding you. Look at my crazy notes. I have like 1, 2. I've been drawing pictures, trying to. I don't know what I think I'm trying to do. I need to make a crazy wall behind me with string. Yeah, so, and I covered the talk about Steve. I mean, I think Steve, quite frankly, Steve needs to quit talking, and we don't need to talk about him anymore. Yeah. I mean, I think I told you the things that he said, and I don't really know how he learned them, and I don't know if they're accurate, and that's the thing. I don't like how the clicky news baity people will report on Steve as if he's accurate, and those are the same people that then it's an echo chamber. Then they reinforce the idea that the police, they said don't have to worry about it. It's targeted, it's not targeted. The police didn't do that. The elected officials, the mayor, the coroner, who's not even a doctor, she's a nurse, who's a lawyer. Oh yeah, and she's representing that guy who had the domestic violence thing, which is just kind of weird because she's involved in both cases. But I don't think he'd have the strength. If you listen to Surviving the Survivor, one of the experts was talking about, it was Ann Burgess, what it takes to knife 4 people. I mean, really, we have 2 kill zones. We have 2 rooms, because now we know, thanks to Steve, that the girls were together, and we know Zana and Ethan were together. And on the outside, it seems to be that it is blood that's leaking down, because the house was electric. It's not oil. It's not heating oil, because they don't have that there. And Duty Ron and Ed Wallace were looking, they had a picture of inside, one of those shot inside through the patio door, and up in the very corner you could see the same rivulets of blood, but it was up on the corner, which would be that bigger room. So the dad is saying they were killed in Maddie's room together, and I wonder if Maddie had moved her bed already into the bigger room that Kaylee had, and I wonder if that was the room, because the blood is right there. But we don't know. Again, we don't know where everybody was. We're listening to Steve, who says they were together, and I don't think law enforcement confirms that. Law enforcement, I don't think, confirms that their wounds were a little bit different, or one was hurt worse. And they certainly, I mean, whatever caused blood to run outside the house in Xana and Ethan's room has got to be just as horrific as what happened upstairs. It's the hours of time that after being gone through that happened. And I think if the person came in, if the dog was with the girls, I think either the dog was put in that bathroom, that little bathroom that's upstairs. That's what I think. Because people on the last floor, even if the dog started barking, wouldn't hear the dog in the bathroom. That's just my, I think the dog was with its owners. And I think they were probably in the bigger bedroom on that 3rd floor. But I don't know. They said they were in Maddie's room. Again, Steve says. We're at the Steve Says show. So, yes, I talked about the raging rumors. Is there anything else I didn't tell you about? No, I don't think so. We know that now there was that Ethan was with his sister for that time, and I am pretty sure that it was later. I think that's going to be the interesting point to all this. All right, so just trust and believe, you guys, that law enforcement they've got 4 targets that they're looking at, and they're probably looking at the 2 survivors. Their doors were locked. So maybe they just survived because their doors were locked and the person couldn't get in. Maybe because everybody else was drinking, even if they had special locks, they couldn't get in. Or maybe Xana's door was messed up. And you know, Steve says that the killer didn't have to go upstairs. I say the killer didn't have to go around the corner. But were Xana and Ethan in the living room watching anything, falling asleep on the couch? Because if you snuck in or were noisy on the 3rd floor, if you were sleeping in the living room, you might hear it and go towards it, and maybe, because they said everybody was sleeping when attacked. They didn't say in their beds. They said sleeping. So the big controversy still about why was somebody said to be not like unconscious. They said, and one of their roommates were Xana and Ethan attacked, and maybe one ran to the bedroom and the other one, they were in the living room and they heard the third floor thing or whatever, and they fell, so that if you looked up those stairs to the second floor, you could see them lying there not moving. And you would say, Xana, what? Like, she's the only dark-haired girl, so they would know her hair. Or if they thought it was Ethan, you know what I mean? They would say, wait, hey, they would call. Then they would call the other people. And if nobody's picking up, that's when they freaked out, called their friends, and that's when I think the whole weird thing started. And the door opened at 8 o'clock? I don't know. I mean, if the person entered on the third floor, took care of the third floor people, came down to the second floor, and was going to exit but saw Xana and Ethan and had to do that, then maybe once they're in the living room and that floor area, maybe they just took off downstairs. But how did they get out without leaving a trail of blood? That is the question. Were they so well prepared that they had clothes to change into? Did they have a bag that was like a bug out bag, like type of like had stuff to? If that's the case, then we're definitely talking about a serial killer. And then we're back to the 13th thing. Somebody who maybe had picked out a house based on a number, picked out a house based on walking around, went to a party there. I don't know, but maybe they watched and waited and planned for a very long time. That is our worst case scenario. Anyways, you guys, like, subscribe. I gotta go. I have things going on here. I will do the rest of episode 30, I think it's 38. I will do the rest of that tomorrow. And for now, enjoy my long-ass soliloquy lecture on the Idaho 4. Let me know in the comments, what do you think happened? What do you think the probabilities are, if there's any probabilities? What are the possibilities? Which one do you like the most? I would love to hear your ideas. Let me know down below. Anyways, I will see you next time. Bye.